right. Boom. Got a Spotmatic here. Gonna try to put it back together. I'm doing this on my phone, so hopefully it doesn't look too much like shit. Of course, I timed this perfectly because my neighbors are upstairs doing what I can only assume is some kind of sponsored charity march. There we are. Clear that. Easy peasy. Got that back in place. Reset that there. Oh. All right. So I got a Spotmatic, just SP. And then I also have this Spotmatic, which I'm going to take apart and put back together. These parts are all from this one camera, so not too much of a mess. I did clean before I started this, and very little prep was put into this live stream, so thought I might as well just give it a rip. Let's see. I just have a hard time holding the mirror box kind of in place where it needs to go. There it is. Son of a bitch. Nope. That's embarrassing. Oh, there it is. Okay. It will say that's the benefit of editing right there. So I can mess up as much as I want. No one has to notice. But welcome in. I don't know, I thought I've wanted to do this for a while because it just seems easier than having to edit stuff all the time. But I don't know, I just like talk myself out of it a lot of times. And I was like, oh, I could just do it on my phone, which isn't obviously the best in terms of audio visual quality, but it's something, you know, just got to get the ball rolling. And you'll notice maybe in the top of the frame, I have like this OG authentic Spotmatic manual that I actually got recently from a dude I bought a Spotmatic from. And let's see, I got the whole kit. But he had this like, this Spotmatic in the case with the body cap, all of the lenses, had this like really neat box too. He was just like selling because he didn't use it anymore. And he bought it, or he had his bunkmate, he was stationed in Vietnam back in like the 60s or whatever. He had his bunkmate buy it when he went on leave. And now I own it, so that's kind of cool. And it came with the manuals, which I always kind of dig that stuff. And I take the mirror box out again because I goofed. There's my upstairs neighbors yelling. The casual, I can't hear you yell. I can hear you though, that's always nice. But yeah, the manual itself just looks kind of interesting, kind of nice. It has like this picture of a baby in a basket, which I don't really know what that's supposed to convey. And then swans and a rose, but you know. Also, it comes in this like old Pentax bag, which is kind of neat. But I digress. Basically, this guy is in pretty rough condition. There we go. So, took the mirror box out to clean the shutter mechanism, make sure that it's properly lubricated and whatnot. And then putting it back together honestly doesn't take too long to do if you know what you're doing. But I've been a bit of a bumbling mess today, so should make for relatively interesting content here. Earlier today, I worked on an A1 I got for $20, and I think that'll be a great video. It's a disgusting camera, and I don't know if it properly is conveyed in the video just how gnarly it is. I'm telling you, it was like crustaceous getting that thing off. There's the switch for, let me show you briefly. This switch here that controls the blades that cover up the viewfinder. This was like embedded in the camera, like I had to dig it out, and be proud of me because I actually wore gloves for that occasion, and let me tell you, what a win. Let's see. It's not often that I take proper safety precautions, but when I do, I feel a little bit better about myself. That is for sure. Okay, that is back in place where it needs to be. And psych. Let's see. There we go. Well, I suppose while I'm here, and while I have a captive audience, relative captive audience, I should say, could talk about some stuff coming up, because there's quite a bit. I got UFC 290 something, 296 I think is this weekend. For the very small percentage of audience that is interested in both camera repair content and UFC stuff. Should be an interesting fight night. I'm not particularly all too intrigued in it, to be honest. I don't know. The whole Colby Covington title shot thing is just not really for me. And then on top of that, it's like, I don't know, just feels like weird, like Paddy Pimblett fighting Ferguson just feels forced. The Luque Gary situation is just kind of weird and it's kind of icky, to be honest. It's a little icky. And then on top of that, let's see, the Wonder Boy and Shavkat fight just seems like everyone knows what's going to happen, which, you know, Shavkat's fantastic, and I'm looking forward to seeing him fight again. But at the same time, it's like, what are we doing here? Wonder Boy's 40 years old. Like, I get that they're probably pissed he didn't want to fight Pereira back in July or whenever it was, but Jiminy Christmas, I really buggered this up. I think next time what I'll probably do is do a live stream repair on something I've worked on recently, because I've not taken the mirror box out of a Spotmatic in a hot minute, and it shows. But this is the riveting content that people are looking for. Lack of hands in frame while I potentially break a camera, and a big old pile of Q-tips, because like I said, I've been working on some weird stuff today, so I wasn't entirely sure what I would come across when I open this. This Spotmatic I'm excited to take apart because the prism, I don't know if we can even see in there. Boop, boop, boop. There's a giant like shatter in the prism, and I don't know, there's like some bits of glass, it looks like, in the focus screen, so that should be exciting. There are them hands at. Also, howdy to Jason there. Sorry, I'm doing this on my phone, and like, I don't know, I can't really see the screen, so this is what we're dealing with. Anyway, long story short, fights should be interesting, but overall not too stoked. Definitely, like, I don't know, I have like this weird caveat when it comes to pay-per-view fights, because like I'm not spending the $80 on them, so it kind of feels weird to get excited for them, because it's like I'm not going to watch them. So what's the point? I mean, you know, you could illegally stream them, but who would do such a thing? Not me, that's for sure. I would never. Also, shout outs to my coworker. He suggested I pick up one of these nifty soldering irons. Like, works really well. It has like these digital controls, and it shuts off like immediately, which is nice. Obviously, it's still hot, so I'm not going to go sticking it anywhere near my hands, but it heats up pretty quick, which is nice because I don't have to like leave it running the whole time that I'm working. So that's a cool benefit. Yeah, $80 for a UFC pay-per-view. It's different if you're watching with like friends and stuff, but that's just not really a thing I have done lately. And I work Saturdays now, so like that kind of gums up my schedule a little bit. But oh, here we go. I think I see what I did wrong. So what I think I might have done is I left my ringer on my computer, so you can hear when I get texts. I think what I did was I had the mirror box not properly seated, and then I fired and kind of messed up the... There we go. That would be the self-timer, which is the most annoying sound ever. Yeah, I basically desynced the mirror box and the body from firing. So just have to yoink this out. The charging mechanism for the mirror box is currently pinned in, which is just where you want it. Just another successful night of repairing stuff. I don't know what it has been lately, but I've just been like batting about 1,000 when it comes to getting things actually done. Had a rolly cord, I should say, today. I was able to get wrapped up pretty quickly. But other than that, and the A1, which I still need to take apart again because it's really dry, like the shutter's horrific. Other than that, it's just been pretty much a series of failures. And like, I've not had a lot of repair time because I've not been home as much lately. So, which has also been kind of why I've not been editing as much as I would like to. As my old Spanish teacher would say, no hay excusas, which is like don't have excuses. And I would say, but I don't understand Spanish. And she's like, no excuses. And I'm like, okay. I feel like it's just a reason. I'm not trying to make an excuse. I just don't get the language. Did not do well in that class. That was like the first C that I got to. There we go. Jiminy Christmas. Okay, so let's start over. There we go. Back to it. So mirror box, Spotmatic. Here you've got the contacts for the front plate, which has the flash sync pins there. Here is the self timer. It's important. This is kind of stupid, but it is important that you keep the self timer at least lined up. There's this little thing here that has to sit there. I don't even know what you would call this, but it's like a little bracket thing, washer. I don't know. Anyway, this sits in there, lines up with the front here, so it has to be very particular, which is why typically what I would do before I take it off is I charge it and then let it chill, which is why I was kind of annoyed when it started running. Also, it's just a terrible sound. Like these old like geared self-timers sound horrific to me, but I digress. Curtain is discharged. The mirror box is discharged. The body itself in here internally is fairly clean. I didn't really have too many issues with this one. I think the other one is going to be more of the issue, but I guess we will see. I just have to get this seated properly and not be a complete dingbat about it. But we will see how that shakes out. Looks like we got 3 people watching. What is up? How's it going? 17 minutes. What a unsuccessful and riveting 17 minutes of content we have here. Let's see. There. What I really should just do... No, it's okay, I guess. They say there's these screws back here, and typically I'll just like unscrew them because they're kind of a pain in the ass to line everything up with, but I've not had too much of a trouble with them this time, so I wasn't worried about it as much. But now I'm thinking it might just be wiser to get rid of them and not deal with that, but just shimmy that in there. And then for this, I think it's right here. Anyway, that's where we're at. It's really riveting content. Like I said, next time I do this, I'll probably have more of a direction and plan. And I might actually like work on a camera that I have worked on recently, so I don't sound like a bumbling idiot when I'm doing it. Can't imagine this instills much confidence, but here we go. In other news, very exciting news. If I can find it. Oh, here it is. With the Spotmatic that I got from the dude in Vietnam, he had this ZXM, and I was really stoked about this because this is the one that can have the manual lenses on there and not just the weird KA mount. So I can put this 40mm pancake on here and do stuff with that, and I think that's pretty great. I'm pretty stoked about it. Alternatively, I can put on older M42 mounts and go from there. One of the ones that came in with these Spotmatics is this 85-19, which is a very, very nice lens. I am unfortunately too broke for it because it's very expansive. And this one is in not the best condition, so I'm going to try to work on that later. But anyways, it's a really nice lens. I could shoot with that on that camera with a little adapter, which it came with. You got this like OG adapter in like original packaging and everything. And the problem though is, to me, I find this just amazingly interesting, like just truly fascinating. However, the resale market for this stuff is just less than minimal. Although I will say that the graph of somebody suffocating with this bag on their head is hilarious. It's like Pac-Man with is that a greater than or less than sign? Greater than. I think it's greater than. Anyway, I think it's cool, but that would make me in the minority of opinion because no one else really cares about these things. So we will move on from there. I'm gonna try this again. Try not to make that much of a mess of it. I do love working on Spotmatics. Make no mistake about that. It has been many moons. And I mentioned earlier in the video that, video I posted earlier today, I should say, that there was one of my older videos I worked on a Spotmatic. Gets a lot of flack to this day, rightfully so. It's not a great video. It was just really funny to me. Like, it's still getting kicked up in the algorithm. Nope, that's not it either. Ah, you son of a bitch. Yeah, so it's one of those that, like, it's still getting kicked around, even though, like, I feel like I've made much better content since then. And people will comment on it like, oh, you moron, you're doing it all wrong. And I'm like, yeah, no, I was. Because I feel like I have learned quite a bit since that point in time. But if you've only seen that video, you wouldn't know that. So I digress. I see I've got a couple more comments. Question about shooting in cold weather. Does it affect the ability of the film to advance smoothly? Let's see. Oh, I got a couple here. The KX died on me because of it's okay. Yes, I'm very excited about the M42 adapter. Shooting in cold weather. It depends. I've seen, I don't really shoot in a lot of cold weather, to be honest, because living in Phoenix for many years, there would be like a couple of days where it would drop below 30 at night. But, you know, I was asleep because it was late. So I've not really shot in those conditions as much. I don't know if it does much for the advancing of film. I'd imagine depending on the camera and depending on who serviced it / when it was serviced / if it was serviced, that could potentially lead to an issue. I don't think with the advance, I think if anything it would be more like other systems getting gummed up depending on the oil lubrication that was used. I remember the original lubrication that we used to use at the shop was silicone based, and it was very I think viscous. I think viscous is the word I want to use, because it was not as free flowing, and there was some point of concern that if it got too cold, then it would kind of solidify a little bit more, and that could potentially be a problem. So since that, we started using like gun oil, which is supposed to be more liquidy or whatever, liquidy. Anyway, so I'm not entirely sure if that answers your question at all. I feel like that's more for the finer tuned mechanical proceedings such as advancing and firing and the shutter times especially. I feel like that's kind of what I'd be more concerned with rather than film advancing, but I could be mistaken. Okay, trying that again. I'd say this is not really the video you want to watch for a tutorial, because I'm not doing a great job of explaining what I'm doing, and also can't see half the shit I'm doing. I'm still trying to figure out the work setup for this little desk area over here. I do think that the shutter on my FED slows down in near freezing weather, but direct from Ukraine, it should have good weather lube. Yeah. Half worried about the film getting brittle and breaking as it spools. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. So that would be my thought regarding the situation there. Was supposed to go to Banff like last year, I think it was, and then schedules just got kind of messed up. So if you do go, I hope you have fun. I heard that there was like the Northern Lights up there sometimes during the year, whatever, and that's like something I've always wanted to see. So I was really looking forward to the trip, but then the weather just got weird, and finding like lodging there seemed to be kind of a challenge for like a last minute sort of trip. Uh, which is kind of what it ended up being, I should say. But anywho, let me see. That I don't think is supposed to be there. There we go. So that was part of the problem, I believe. Potentially. Who fucking knows? Alright. Trying that again. Doing the thing. This is so much fun. This is how I want to spend my evening. On the bright side, the neighbors have stopped walking around and shouting, so that's nice. I don't know if anyone hears it other than me, because I feel like I've had people over, and they're like usually quiet upstairs. I think it's just for me when I'm home alone that they like really bring out the bells and whistles. Like, all right, time to party hard. These contacts got fucked up. But I suppose that's just the benefit of upstairs neighbors. My lease ends at the beginning of March, so I'm stoked to figure something else out. It's been nice. I enjoy this place for what it is. I think it just kind of sucks because, I don't know, it's far from just about everything, and then also it's a basement, so it's kind of perpetually cold, which is nice during the summer because God forbid anywhere up here has air conditioning. But during the winter, as it is quickly becoming, it makes it very challenging to stay warm. Like, very rarely am I without socks and pants when I'm home here. But on the bright side, on the days where I'm not at work or whatever, I hardly notice that it's dark all day because I'm just underground. So, got that going for me. Also, I think I've mentioned this, but I have the, I don't know where it is. The Fed 5C or whatever, this rangefinder. It's kind of doinky, but I got this lens from Kazakhstan, and I had hopes on making like a video about Kazakhstan because it's a kind of interesting country. It is one that I know, like, kind of some weirdly specific information about. Like, that's where the tulip originated from and the apple. And then there's an apple or a valley of apples in Kazakhstan where there's like X amount of different genomes or whatever variations of apples. Anyway, it was my idea for the project was to reach out to a bunch of different photographers that live in Kazakhstan or are Kazakhstani or whatever, and like see what photography is like there as opposed to here, because I just got this lens from Kazakhstan. Reached out to the 3 that I could find and heard back from none of them. So that kind of shot that idea in the foot there. There we go. I don't know why that took me so long to get synced up. So this is what it's supposed to look like in case you're curious. But anyway, wanted to do that project, didn't take off, and I'm still gonna try to do like a SLR versus rangefinder video to see like which is better. Because outside of like Canonet shooting, I pretty much only shoot with SLRs, and I like them. I feel like it's, for me, it just makes more sense. For others, I can definitely understand why they like the rangefinder feel. My buddy Gage, whom I talk about quite often, he had the M6 for a while. We went out on like a little shoot one time that never ended up becoming anything because I forgot to record a lot of it. And he let me like look through the viewfinder of the M6, and I was like, oh, that is just, the focus patch is so bright. It's a completely different experience. So I totally get the Leica appeal, but I think for me, I prefer different things. I just really like shooting with Spotmatics. I really like shooting with the K1000, the MX, the AU1 at times. There's a lot of different experiences that I enjoy that I don't think I need to get the Leica or anything crazy like that to have the same level of enjoyment. So also, I think that's what I tell myself to prevent myself from spending Leica money, but I digress. Yes, let's see. AE1 program and ME Super. What lenses should you invest in? I would say I really like the 40mm lens I have. I think it does a lot for me because I went through a big phase of shooting like a 28mm for a very long time. That's really what I enjoyed shooting with. But after a while, I just kind of got bored of it. Like, I don't know, it was too wide a lot of the times. So then I was like, okay, maybe something like a 35. But then with the 40, it's such a low profile lens. And 40 is just like a really nice in-between focal length. It's a little bit wider than a 50, but like not so much wider. And that's something I really enjoy. They are expensive lenses though. There's no two ways about that. Like, I got mine for kind of a great deal, and it's in like really good condition, but I've seen them go for quite a bit of money. So I don't know. I recommend that quite a bit because I enjoy it. But the 50mm is fine. I kind of want to get some kind of 85 or something like that. Some slightly longer, but not too much longer lens. And then for the AE1 program, 50's good as well. The 28, the FD28 that I have, I like a lot, but mostly for video work. Like I mount that on like the Blackmagic, or I mount that on another camera and go from there. But the 40mm is just the Pentax. Where is it? Son of a bitch. I just had it. And oh, there it is. This guy. Yeah, pretty standard 40 2.8. I think it looks really sleek on this guy. Very tiny. And then especially on like an MX, it is like literally a pocket camera. Oh man, my back. But the emulsion on the Pentax glass is pretty nice, especially the newer stuff, the SMC, which is super multi-coated or whatever. It's pretty great. And kind of the same deal with FD glass. It's usually pretty nice. My recommendation for people just all the time is get a third-party lens if you can, and then based upon your feelings on the focal lengths, then help that dictate your purchasing decisions. Because I mean, you can think, oh, I'm gonna like this or I'll like that, but until you see it, it's really hard to tell. So I just recommend like getting like a third-party zoom lens or something like that, which sounds like boinky, but you can get one for next to nothing. The only thing is they're hard to come by because nobody wants to sell them because they aren't really worth trying to sell. I know this because I have many third-party zoom lenses, but if you can get like a nice like JC Penney super coated FD lens with a good range from like 70 to 210 or something, you can kind of see, oh, somewhere in this range, I like that focal length. I like that. There's a good use case for that here, whatever. I kind of did the same with a Nikon zoom lens that I had. I had it on the F3, took it down to Arcata, took some like really nice portraits. I was like, I really like this 80mm focal length, which is different for me because typically I like wider stuff. But obviously portrait stuff is completely different than the street photography that I'm kind of more used to doing. Sweet. And then I had a guy come into the shop the other day with a Mamiya C330, some variation of it, and he had the like 105, the 55, and the 80. And I think I only have the 80 for the Mamiya, but that 55, I was like, oh, that's nice. That looked really nice to me. So that might be a very dumb purchasing decision I try to make somewhere in the near future, but for the most part, I kind of like just shooting on one lens, having one prime lens to deal with, and then kind of dictating your photography based off of those parameters, because I do think there's a lot more skill involved in creating images based upon limitations than otherwise. Personal preference, of course. I don't know. I just find like when you're walking around with a bunch of lenses and kind of constantly swapping, I feel like you spend more time doing that than taking photos, which I am one to talk because I walk around with multiple cameras and spend more time swapping through cameras than actually, you know, shooting or anything. So, pot calling the kettle black there, but you know, do as I say, not as I do. And that is removed. So, because I gotta figure out how to shimmy this into here again. Let's see, more comments. 24 to 70. Yeah, I would say that's probably pretty common. There might be some fungus issues with the lens in between the coating. I don't know. It usually doesn't look like streaks though, but there could be something to that sort. Would be my guess. I don't know. Usually it's like blotches or something kind of similar to that, but who's to say? Mold comes in all different shapes and sizes. God bless the mold. The 24 to 70 though, that's a good range, I would say. That's on the better side of ranges of lenses, because like even the like 70 to 210 example I had, like that's fine, but I don't know, I feel like at a certain point you're just kind of getting the same look and the same look and the same look. So it's kind of nice to have variations of that, and 24 to 70 covers wide range. I saw it was like Optica 16 to 35 FD mount. or it wasn't Optica. What was it? It was one of the ProMaster. It was a ProMaster like 16 to 35. And I was like, I'm not interested in that. I told myself I'm not, because it's lightweight, like plasticky. It's a ProMaster. ProMaster stuff is all kind of feels the same in my mind. It all just kind of feels like shit, to be honest. There's time and place for it, but oh, you son of a bitch. But I don't know, just not really for me per se. Um, but I was like 16 to 35 is a very interesting range. Let's see. Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I would say if I don't know, you might be able to clean the streaks. It's hard to say without seeing it, but I don't know. I just don't really deal with lenses because it's usually more of a headache than anything. I have a hard enough time with like the few lenses that I can work on. But I don't know. They're also, I don't know, there's just something about like the calibration component, especially for like the focusing rings, that just kind of scares me. Of course, it's one of those things I feel like if I was just to, do it, it probably wouldn't be as bad. But I've allowed myself to like talk myself out of it a lot. So it's like, no, it's scary. I don't want to do it. So I just don't. And I think my life is a little bit better for it. A little bit. Not like, maximally better, but, a little bit. And every little bit counts at the end of the day. Let's see. Need to remagnetize these screwdrivers. Son of a bitch. Yeah, I think next time I do this, I'll probably have a better setup going. And probably shoot it through a better camera that isn't my phone. And then actually have a way that I can read comments without having to get up and get down. Although I will say the standing up is helping my back a lot, because the stool that I'm sitting on is just not the best. But gotta do what you gotta do. I think I might wrap after I put this back together, because I might then go work at my other desk. Just for the sake of my back. Because Lord have mercy, the dogs are barking. Right now I'm just putting back together the door latch release mechanism here. There's a tension basically that needs to sit on this point here to kind of force it back down, kind of keep it all contained. It's a weird system, but it works. It also, this one serves as the grounding screw for the meter, which doesn't really ever work on these things. I believe this one of the cells looks a little bit bad. The needle's sitting below where it should, but I digress. And then this needs to go here. And I think what I'll probably do as well next time, if I ever do another one of these live streams, is have some idea of what I want to talk about, and not just the bumbling like an idiot bit that I'm doing. As much fun as I'm sure that is for everybody involved, it'd be kind of cool if I did something that was a little bit more focused and not just the ramblings of a madman. Boom. Oh man. Also, I don't. How's the audio? That's my other concern, because I'm just doing this on my phone. I feel like that could be potentially an issue. For the longest time, I was just doing like the onboard audio on my camera, which is the old EOS M6, and it worked. I mean, not awesomely, but well enough. And then I got the mic, and it sounds so much better. I don't really like editing the sound of my voice, but I've kind of gotten over that. But when the audio sounds better, I feel better overall about the product. And I would like to get better about the finer points of making content. I feel like I've kind of just given up on, because I do a lot of stuff like this where I'm just like, if I just start doing it, then I will try to get better. But I just have to get the ball rolling. Jesus Christ. And then when I get the ball rolling, then it's kind of like trying to play catch up consistently. That was awesome. Camera did a backflip. The guy who I'm working on this camera for is a good friend of mine, which I should say is also the reason I'm working on it for a discount rate. But anyway, he told me the story about his like Spotmatic. I think his mom gave it to him back in the day, and he was hiking somewhere and dropped it like 20 feet or something like that, and fell. It broke open, the back popped open, film came out, all that bit. And then he picked it up, put a new roll of film in it, and it kept working. And I believe that to a certain extent. Like, these things are pretty bulletproof. There's not a lot that can really go wrong with them. But then I have seen them that's like, oh, this has just been sitting in a mud puddle for 20 years, or sitting in someone's attic in like a moldy bag for 20 years. And then it just doesn't work. So I think it just depends. The mirror, bumper, pad, whatever on these are usually always bad. So I'm going to probably replace that. And the seals as well are pretty horrific. So I'm going to replace those as well. That's all part of the fun. For now, I'm just going to put the front plate back on. I feel like that's kind of all I need to do there. Also, should probably resolder the power wire to the contact here. That one is already in there. Boop. This thing is the tits. If you need a soldering iron, I recommend it. It's, what is it, the pine something or another. It literally heats up in a minute. Takes no time at all. And then you can like do all the crazy settings with it if you want. You can calibrate it. It has like a sleepy time. It'll like turn off pretty quickly. I'm a big fan, and it was, you know, reasonably affordable. It was like 35, 40 bucks. Took about a week or so to get here from China, I think. So if you're in the market for one, I'd recommend it. And then also, like I said, it takes a USB-C port cord there. So just a little easy yoinkaroo. And also very lightweight too, which is nice, because I felt like my other one, I had the Weller setup, and that was just such a hunking mess a lot of the time. I felt like I was fighting it just to try to get it in the proper position. But this is much better. So overall, this has been a successfully unsuccessful evening, I would say. I'm glad I finally took the first step in getting this rolling, because it's been something, like I said, I've wanted to work on for a bit, and I do want to do more fine-tuning. Got the neighbors yelling again. Yeah, more fine-tuning that I want to do with it. Try to make it a little bit more of a consistent product, and one that's, again, not just me babbling about whatever comes to mind and then dropping the camera mid-repair. Embarrassing. Yeah, that's pretty much the hope, the intent, the plan, but just got to get there. And in the meantime, I do have videos I want to do for this week. I'm just still trying to figure out with the new job, which I'm hella stoked about, by the way. I'm still trying to figure out my life schedule around that because I spend so much of my time commuting now, which is awesome. But yeah, basically just trying to figure out that whole situation. When do I edit? When do I, sleep and do all those other important-ish tasks? So what I'm trying to do there, just so you know, is reset the self timer so it syncs up with the self timer system in the body there. So that way when I move this over here, it goes where it needs to, and that's fairly important. Very rarely, very, very rarely do I feel like anyone ever uses a self timer on a Spotmatic, but if they were to use the self timer on a Spotmatic, it would be a real bummer if it didn't work. Because I feel like that, it's one of those things where you're never going to need it until you do. And I don't know where I was going with that, but it was going to be a very beautiful, eloquent point. And instead, my mind just had a little senior moment. It's like, I don't even know what time it is, but it is, oh yeah, 9:30. It's about my bedtime. Just kidding, it's not. Still got a good 4 hours left to go, probably. Anyway, this is pretty much the process. Usually, instead of me just bambling on about whatever to myself and the however many people watching, I'm like watching a show or something, and I've had a hard time finding good shows recently. I feel like there was one that I was kind of digging, and let's see. I don't know, it fluctuates because sometimes I'll find a good show, I'll be watching it, digging it, and then I'm like, I'm tired of this, and then I'll go back to watching like SG1 or something, and you can only watch SG1 so many times, and I feel like 8 was kind of my limit, and now I'm like on a good hearty reset from it. Like I've not seen it in just about a year pretty much, just to kind of reinvigorate the passion for it when I watch it again. Maybe I'll forget some of the episodes. But regardless, it's like when I'm watching a new show, it's hard to kind of concentrate on what I'm doing because I can't watch a new show and work on a camera, and it's a whole thing. So I'm like, okay, no show, just work. But then that's just quiet and miserable. So I'm like, okay, maybe music. But then music kind of devolves into, well, what if we just watch a show instead? So it's all about figuring it out. One of the guys I used to work with, I've talked about him briefly in the past. His whole bit was like, what was the least amount of parts you had to put on a camera? He would try to put the fewest amount of parts back into the camera. So he'd get like, I'm not gonna say his name, but like, anytime I'd be inspecting cameras and stuff, any one of them like would rattle a bunch or like just moved a little bit more than it should. It was like, oh, well, that's so and so's camera, and it just always amazes me to think about that. Where it'd be like, I don't know. He trained me a little bit. Like he showed me some stuff, and he's just like, oh, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about that. I was like, what about this screw? He's like, yeah, don't worry about that. I was like, okay, what about this? He's like, yeah, I don't. Like there was so much that he just wasn't even remotely concerned about. I was like, well, who taught you? And he's like, oh, an aircraft engineer or something, like some mechanic. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And he's, what are you doing? He's like, he was in school for something or another. And I don't know, it was really funny. It's like, you don't worry about that screw, don't worry about that spring. I was like, well, what about these set screws? He's like, don't worry about it. I was like, okay, what should I worry about? I said, don't worry about it. And it was funny because none of his stuff ever really worked. It amazes me to think back and be like, oh, we actually were in business for a while. Like, it was I mean, I don't know what metrics you would use to measure, but it was a fairly successful company in terms of like it employed people, like a few people at any given time. And I just feel like every time I looked around, like something was falling apart or cameras just weren't being put together. And like all I talked about with my boss was him being like, it only has to work for 30 days. It only has to work for 30 days. I was like, man, like, I don't think that's right. Like, I think they should just work for a while. I'm going to need to re-glue those. Shite. Um, yeah, it just amazes me. Amazes me that that was a thing that happened. Where was that screw that I just had? I don't think this was it. But I digress. Um, there it is. I have a buddy who still works there, actually. I talked to him not too long ago. And apparently, the last time my old boss like messaged me about working there, he's like, "Oh, please come back." And I was like, "Nah, dude, like, I don't even live in the state anymore." And he's like, "Oh, we have like health benefits and all this stuff now." I'm like, "Okay, great. Are you gonna pay me more than more than you were and all this stuff?" And also, like, again, I don't live in the state. And he's like, "Okay, great." But apparently that translated into Alex is coming back. So then my old buddy who still works there messaged me. He's like, "Oh, so and so said that you're coming back." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, he just said that um, he got you to commit to coming back." And I was like, "Nah, dude, that is not at all. Like, that is a really gracious interpretation of that conversation." And he's like, "Oh, well, you got to come back now because he said it." And I was like, "Dude, no, it's not how it works." I don't know. It was just a really weird time. That's the only job that I've ever like gone back to, and I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy for this, but I got like I really do try to not get too upset about things. But I went back there after not working there for however long it was 6 months or something like that. And I had all the manuals and stuff, like repair manuals, old booklets, all sorts of stuff. I had all of it stored at my old desk. And a lot of it was there before I worked there, and a lot of it I kind of accrued while I was working there. And I was like, this is like all very useful information. I get back there, and the person who kind of took over my desk, which I don't give a shit about because, again, I didn't work there, just threw all that stuff away. And like, whatever, do your thing. It's your space. More power to you. But I was like, what the hell? Like, that was like actually useful information, and the manuals and stuff are cool. I don't know. And again, I'm kind of a sucker for stuff like that, but still, I was a little bit upset. And then also, it was just so weird being back there, and nothing had changed except the quality had gone down drastically. So, I digress. Live and learn. Interior of here is not too bad. There is some signs of corrosion and whatnot. Also stabbed my finger, which is nice. The strap lugs usually collect quite a bit of gunk, so I always like to kind of clean those, just for the minute amount of satisfaction I get from it. God, job well done. Look at that, so much better. And then also like under here, usually fairly bad. when I was taking this apart, I was recording a video, and I don't think that video will probably see the light of day because I think I'm just gonna can the idea and call this live stream good enough for it. But I was like, oh, this is a very clean camera because, you know, at first inspection it is, but then you start removing some of the parts on the top and it just becomes a completely different story because you have all this like buildup, all this grime, and you can tell it's corrosion with rust underneath. You start cleaning it out and it's like, oh, this is just gnarly. So let's see what to do. I was thinking about doing audiobooks. I think that's going to be something I look into, especially for the commutes into work, because it's quite a bit of time just driving. Oh my god. I should probably not be doing this with an open wound on my finger. Like, I can't imagine this is good. I feel like I'm up to date on all my shots, but we'll find out if I like wake up with lockjaw or something. I think that's the thing you can get if you don't have your tetanus shot. I get that confused with rabies sometimes, where it's like one of them you're like scared of water, I think. I don't know. I'm not a medical person at all, obviously. And I don't have Facebook, so I don't have any medical research handy. But regardless, that's a really bad joke. The work I'm doing now, I'm actually working for a photo shop in town, or repair shop in town. I'm doing like logistics for stuff around the shop, like where the cameras are going and who has them. And right now I'm just doing a lot of like cleanup and figuring out the consignment system that the shop has and dealing with all that stuff. It's been interesting so far. It's a lot of problem solving, and it's nice to kind of be in the environment with like actual trained technicians as opposed to people who just work in their basement and talk to themselves, such as myself. But yeah, I was talking to my dad last week, I think it was, because he was like commuting for a while, and he used to do like book on tape all the time. And I have like the Hobbit book on tape. I don't have like a cassette player, but I've always wanted to like tear that open and give it a rip. But there's like Audible, but he uses like the library system or whatever. I guess there's like a app that you can rent a book through the library and listen to it through audio. I was like, yeah, that'd be probably pretty smart because I would like to read more, but I just convinced myself that I don't have time to read, or that I forgot how, because reading is hard. So yeah, maybe I'll give that a rip and start doing like book reviews and camera repairs. Just really thrilling content for nobody. One thing that I've always found interesting about the Spotmatic is just that like the little flare out that it has here on the base of the prism. Just like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of cameras are kind of going for just pure function and like taking up the least amount of space, which I respect to a degree. I don't think like large bouts of flare are like really all that cool, but just something very like basic like this just kind of sticks out because it's kind of unlike a lot of other cameras that are out there. I don't know if that even makes any modicum of sense, but I think just the idea of like some part of this very small camera, because I mean these are pretty small, some part of it being not purely for function is interesting to me. That goes up there. There we go. Just gonna put this one screw in the top here, and then give the rest of these bits a clean. Also, haha, ends in 69. But I digress. This piece was also pretty gnarly. So give that a little clean. Also, I really wish that more cameras had this like very mechanical memo system for like what film you have in there. I really enjoy it quite a bit because it makes it, I don't know, it's a nice little touch that again you just don't get in other cameras. And I feel like the more cameras kind of advance, the fewer like thoughtful touches you got in the system. Because a lot of it was like, oh, well, people will know how to make it work. Whereas I feel like you read the old manuals and stuff, and it's just like, here's how you should hold the camera. Here's things you can take pictures of, like just kind of going through all of it versus like the newer cameras you can get. It's like, oh, fucking, here's your camera, idiot. Have fun. This isn't your phone, so you can't see the pictures immediately after you take them. You stupid head, or something like that. It's just that it's different. It's a very different culture, I suppose. Let's see. So bulb and 1600, because that's the highest that the ASA went. The other thing is this little screen here was really blocked. I'm not entirely sure what that was. If I was a betting man, I would say that the previous owner tried to like re-glue it back on or something, because that's usually that fogging happens when you use like certain kinds of glue. But I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I have like plenty replacement parts for it. I would just prefer to not have to use them because yeah, I don't know. That's really weird. Yeah, probably gonna end up having to take this apart again just because. So I'm not too worried about it at the moment. I think the initial thing was just to clean up the shutter because it was just wasn't quite cooperating. And I wanted to see, because I feel like the last Spotmatic I worked on, the shutter kind of spit out at me, like it was so dry. There's the string that basically pulls the curtain along that had snapped. And I was like, oh, it's kind of like the shutter is being unresponsive. That's kind of weird. So I took it apart and found out why, because it like shot out at me. So I don't remember where I was going with that story, but I think I was just kind of curious to see the condition of the shutter in the camera, try to get back up to working again, but obviously gonna have to, son of a bitch, line up. I have to re-glue the leather on this thing, and I'm probably also gonna need to do some work on the meter. If that's not working, I have to figure out if there's anything I can do about that. I'm gonna go off on a limb and say no, because these meters are so finicky. And I think the wine cell battery that I had went bad, and I don't think homie's paying me to do a meter work, but oh well. Got that on. Let's see. Do you by chance have the service manual for the Minolta SR1 Model E? I do not. Is the SR1 just the different branding for the SRT, though? Is that correct? Is it the SRT 101 and the SR? Because I'm pretty sure. Let's see. SR1. Lord have mercy, I spelled that horribly. No, I'm totally incorrect. The Minolta SR1 is a completely different model. That's the one with the weird shoe mount thing on the front there for the meter or something. I'm pretty sure. I've only seen a couple of these. That's the flash connection, isn't it? No? I don't fucking know. Anyway, I do not have the manual for that. Wouldn't even know where to begin on that, to be honest. I feel like it's probably got enough in common with an SRT that should be relatively easy to take apart, but I'm not going to say that because I could be very wrong and I don't want to sound like a moron this entire stream, even though most of the time I have sounded and appeared as a moron because one of those nights. But yeah, I have no idea. I know that's just the most helpful answer you've probably ever gotten, but no dice. What are you trying to work on with that exactly? Because that would probably help inform a lot of the feedback I have for you. And also, let's see. Oh man, I should start stretching. What photographers or artists inspire your style? I'll be honest with you, I don't pay attention to like a lot of photographers. I really don't know that many in the space or at all. Basically, that's my answer. I'm not great at it. There was a street photographer I liked for a bit of time. I don't remember what his name was, but he did a lot of like really interesting flash manipulation. I thought that was kind of cool because flash is such like a unnatural look, and when you're able to like kind of maneuver that around a subject more freely than you would be allowed to if it's just sitting on like the hot shoe of the camera, I just think that kind of looks cool. So I dug that, but I don't remember his name. And then also there's a level of aggressiveness in street photography, especially like of subjects, that I don't really jive with all that much because I don't really like the idea of like running up to somebody and getting in their face and be like, oh, you know, like taking a picture of them. It just, that would make me uncomfortable and I don't want to put someone in that position. So I have like watching their work, it's a weird disconnect because I like parts of it because there's an authenticity to it, but then I also don't like it because it just feels like imposing to a degree. So I really liked Khalik Allah for a bit, and I still do because his stuff is a little bit more understanding of the subject, and he did this really beautiful short film. It's like one of my favorites called The Antonyms of Beauty. And there's just some reality to it that I think is really hard to achieve otherwise. Other than like actually caring about the subjects that you're photographing and like understanding their story and like how they fit in the greater fabric of life. In that case, it was in New York. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. There's some nature photography that I kind of dig, but I can't really tell you anything by name. I think a lot of my inspiration is more like film work based stuff. And photography for me is just more of like I don't know, I just like goofing around. That still sounds like shit, so. Feels much better though, because it was like, it was not good. But anyway, that's kind of it. Again, not the best answer in the world, but that's what we get. Let's self-time. Let's see. And it's funny because, like, I don't know. People go through spouts of time where they're like, they discover a certain photographer, and then they're like, that's all they want to talk about is this one photographer, whatever. And I don't like being that way where I'm like, this is my sole inspiration right now. So like, I'll see things that I really like. When I first really got into like watching movies, it was because of Guy Ritchie and like the movie Snatch. Just, I don't know, there's something about it that was like, oh, that's just so fucking awesome. Like the editing was killer, the cast of characters was like bizarre. There's just a lot going on all the time, and I really dug it. But I was like, I don't really want to make that. Like it's cool, but it's just not like, that's not really me. And then I got into Wes Anderson, as everyone has that went to film school in the mid to late 2010s. And a lot of people I went to school with, it was like, oh, I just want to make Wes Anderson movies. I'm like, yeah, for sure, but like, why? Like, oh, they're like quirky and all that. I'm like, I get it. Like, I love them. I love watching them and stuff. Except the last couple I've seen have not been like ultimately that fond of, because I feel like the gimmick is a little bit tired now. But there is some element of, again, inherent truth to his storytelling that I dig. But I never saw that. I was like, oh, I can't wait to center all of my shots and shoot in 4:3 aspect ratio and have pastel colors with a lot of like weird characters that all kind of have similar daddy issues. I don't know, that just never really vibed with me all that much either. So the Advance feels better. There's still a bit of a dry shutter issue, which needs to be addressed. And the skins still need to go back on. But that's it for now. Got that put back together. Gonna put the bottom back on. This is one of the rare Spotmatic moments where the bottom battery cover actually came off. And it looks like bonus time, it came with a battery. So let's see. I think this is a Mercury one. But again, probably not best to be doing that with an open wound. Oh well. Life expectancy is for losers only. Just kidding. So yeah, this was the very ultimately unsuccessful and pointless live stream in which I kind of put back together Spotmatic in the span of a little bit over an hour and talked about a lot of nonsense the whole time. It was really thrilling and captivating content that I'm sure everybody dug. Next time, I'll probably try to record on a camera. If there is a next time, I should say. There's a big asterisk there. Try to record on an actual camera. Try to work on something that is a little bit less involved than this, because I feel like my brain's just been kind of jostling. Sounds like the name Jocelyn. But yeah, I'll give you a sneak peek on this camera real quick, actually, before I cut this short, because I'm just probably gonna keep working on stuff. Just can't keep sitting here because my back is killing me. Becoming like an 80-year-old man. Cool. Pop that open. Also, I just need to see if I can get the approval for a new prism for this, because if it is broken, I'd kind of feel bad about taking the whole thing apart and then putting it back together with like glass shards in it. And appreciate that. Appreciate the little bout of support there. All right. Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. It's gnarly. gnarly in there, but no bother. Sometimes it amazes me that like people stream video games like that's just like a thing that happens. I'm not a like big gamer person, just generally speaking. Oh, the kids are up. They're yelling again. But just the fact that like even a few years ago, like, oh, I play video games for a living or whatever was kind of like a joke or whatever. But now it's like an actual thing that people can do. It's really incredible. It's not something I could do at all because I suck hard at gaming. The last like video game I played in any remotely competitive or interesting fashion was Modern Warfare 2, which like does date me quite a bit because that game came out in Jesus came out in 2009, I think. But by the time I was like actually playing it online and stuff, it was much later. Then I ended up getting like max rank on all the stuff and multiplayer and completed the game and whatnot. All of the different difficulty levels and whatnot. But still, that was years ago, probably like a decade ago by this point. And yeah, anytime like I sit down to play a game, like, there's something better I could be doing. Like I could be editing or I could be doing something or another. But there's a lot of good games out there. And I kind of want to get into it, but don't want to deal with getting a TV and a console and all that stuff. So respect to the people who like stream for hours on end and just play games, because that is probably a lot more difficult than it would appear. I'm not saying it's like, the worst thing or hardest thing in the world, but it is just an interesting occupation. So got the top removed. That didn't take too long. And internally this is pretty goofed up. You can tell that there's a difference here in the standard Spotmatic as opposed to the SP. This one has a variable resistor for the meter. And overall, though, it's fairly similar construction. Let's see about this prism, though, because I'm genuinely interested. This one also smells a lot worse, which I know you can't really tell, but let me tell you, it's a little bit more funky than the last. And looks like there's the impact right here. Try to get this popped out so I can show you what I'm talking about. What was the other thing? It was like the IRL streamers or whatever that are just doing life stuff. That just is bizarre to me too. Couldn't be me. Big chunk missing here. Obviously, that's kind of what I was seeing. It looks like, yeah, dropping it. There's some kind of impact, it looks like. I kind of see dent there, obviously, but it looks like there's a little bit of deformation there. So that definitely makes sense. That tracks. But what I was also seeing was all of the... Let me grab my rocket thing. There's a bunch of stuff under here, maybe? I guess it was under there. Wow, I thought it was like in between the plating. But nope, just there. Anyway, yeah, the whole thing's just kind of gross and probably needs to come apart. The advance itself is not great on this one. I guess it's fine. Maybe it was just rubbing up against the top then. That probably could have been it. Because typically when it starts sticking, it's because of either it's not seating properly or it's lost tension. I've seen that before too. So This one actually, now that the top is off and removed, is in better condition than that one probably is. This shutter doesn't sound as dry. The seals aren't as bad, and oh, that's you. I need to do seals on that one too. I'll probably do that before I go to sleep. Let's see the bottom of this. Yeah, it's a little gummed up in here. Not too bad. Gear is blue. That's interesting. Yeah, overall pretty decent. So yeah, basically I'll have to talk to my buddy and see if he needs a new prism in here, because this is not ideal, obviously. Alternatively, if he just wants it put back in there, I guess that's fine. But these are things that he was looking to sell, I think. So I don't know if I'd want my name attached to it personally if it was someone with a broken prism, but I digress. Overall, not terrible. That's bizarre though. Someone's definitely been here. Someone's been here. Because this... That's weird. I don't think I've seen that before. If this is a cap for the flash sync cover, which I believe it is, because there's still should be flash sync, it shouldn't be sitting under the leather like this. This is what happens. This is why I don't get any sleep, because I'm like, oh, I'll stop streaming and, you know, do something different, but instead I get wrapped up into mystery hour. I guess I've not seen that then. That's very weird. Well, okay, yeah, I don't know about that. I feel like I guess all of the other Spotmatics I have around me are just SPs, so this isn't really a great indication, but I do feel like there are still the 2 flash sync ports on here, so I don't know why this one's like covered up. But regardless, this camera's not in great condition. It is, however, in better condition than that. Just with Spotmatics, because they're so old and there's just any number of things could be wrong with them, and they're all kind of weird and different in that fun way. Hence mystery hour. I think that's going to do it for now, though. Let's see. What are you doing at this? You know what, dude? Listen, these are prime repair hours, okay? This is the prime time to repair. Oh, man. Yep, I still got another couple hours in me. But I think I'm going to end this recording now, because it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun, but I'm ready to retire to my much more comfortable chair to work. So thank you very much for tuning in. Appreciate all of the viewers and stuff. And yeah, catch you on the next one. Don't know how to end this, so we'll figure it out.